Welcome to The New Next, a podcast that addresses current events and how they will impact the future. Co-hosted by the inquisitive public speaking champion, Mike McVeigh, and energy, economics, and technology expert, Matt Jensen. Join us as we explore all things energy, economic, tech, and political, and how they will affect our future.
So it's been really interesting kind of seeing the discussion around autonomous and self-driving cars, self-driving taxis as of late, because I think, something that we've talked about, or I've talked a lot about over the last couple of years, is the level to take a car from very good autonomous to having all those nuances that people would feel comfortable basically releasing it at a consumer scale for the market without human intervention is quite a challenge. So if you're taking it from a 97% to a 99.9%, it's a very difficult challenge technically to basically map out all those scenarios in AI and make sure that that the AI can really respond in a positive way throughout all these different scenarios. So you've seen a lot of deployment of these AI taxis on specific routes in areas like Arizona, where you don't really have any rain or variable in weather. But it's been really interesting to see lately, really kind of like the development in the car markets, and to see how self-driving has shifted, especially with a larger player. So GM had Mobileye, which was a company that they acquired, I think, about for 17 billion. Just pulling out my memory bank there. So haven't looked it up in a long time. Go look it up yourself. But Mobileye basically does driver-assisted cars, so or driver assistant systems, and then also the AI systems. And GM had hoped to get, I think, above $50 billion when they IPO'd them as a subsidiary. I think they IPO'd them recently, granted in not a good market, for $17 billion. So it's, I think, investor appetite has soured a little bit because there hasn't really been a proven business model from the self-driving AI. But from the technical sense, it just really hasn't caught up to where people expected. And you've really seen a big pushback recently on that. So, there's been a lot of criticism of like Waymo, for instance, of their inability to get where they expected to be at this point. But some interesting things too, according to TechCrunch, Christian Korsak found a scoop that Ford announced that they would be winding down their Argo AI that they were working, developing with Volkswagen as a co-development partnership, focused on developing those full-level 4 autonomous driving technologies. So those are the ones where, the car is basically fully in control. And the Ford CEO, Jim Farley, on their earnings call, talked about that profitable, fully autonomous vehicles at scale are a long way off, and we won't necessarily have to create that technology for ourselves. So it's an interesting perspective from them. Is Ford is, I'm interpreting from this, unwilling to go through with the continued capital burn expected to develop these technologies. They'd rather go out and buy it. And I think the application is interesting too. So, Tesla's, granted, they're not fully autonomous, but they're kind of viewed as I would say a lot of people would say that they build the best cars on the earth right now, but from a systems software engineering perspective, they've got the best, I would say, near autonomous systems. But it's just kind of interesting that these companies are out there basically funding and operating them on public roads, but it's really that, when you think about these robot taxi sort of things from a fundamental business economics thing, is when you visualize it just as technology, from a consumer sense, it's kind of interesting, right? You can just sit in your car and it'll go scoot you to where you need to go. You don't have to put any effort into it and anything. When you're talking about the commercial side with a taxi system, you're basically shuttling people or operating a bus transit sort of format. So there's a lot of, like, I would say, structural needs with labor and stuff like that, that needs to be behind that to really make it viable. And with the ability to, probably operate only during days, maybe only during non-peak traffic hours, only during good weather and stuff. It's kind of, I would say the hope that all of us saw over the past couple of years was really exciting, but it really hasn't gone, I think, as far as a lot of people have expected, especially the investors. And investor sentiment on it, I believe, is souring. So I've seen this talked about in a few media outlets, investor media outlets recently, and also tech outlets. I think it's a really interesting discussion that we've had here a lot around this is, sometimes these technologies are really cool, but what's kind of the application commercial need for it? And does that revenue, I guess, justify the amount invested in it? So what I see a lot with AI in, I would say, the B2B kind of more technical engineering markets is that AI is often used as a sales feature where it'll help get you the sale and be an add-on, but it's really hard for the purchaser to value that unless there's, strict economic value there. So from a value capture perspective, it's a lot harder to, be like, well, here, this does the same thing, but it's got this tricky little algorithm with it that makes this more efficient. So, it's interesting. Someone that's used the driver assistance technologies quite a lot, I like it, but I don't think it's much as like of a essential thing. And you really see over the past couple years, this has really like trickled down from, I would say, like the luxury automobiles to kind of more standard on mid-range sort of stuff where it's good enough, but it's just, Ford, it makes sense why Ford would want to go out and buy this later. And it makes sense why Tesla, who's maybe aimed at a higher income level market where they're more tech friendly consumer, could get more value out of the AI stuff for basically selling it. But I kind of feel like there's multiple tiers of this consumer market, and it's just going to be a really interesting, like a lot of the stuff that we say, we talk about long-term trends, It's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how kind of the investment allocations between self-driving and like I would say like robo taxis kind of play out. Because, you know, my perspective is that the robo taxis were kind of, they can be gridded into a air system, air grid traffic, much like, you know, they do with just normal airplanes. You have a less of the variability in that. And from an AI perspective, that seems more of a applicable, less complex technology to really roll out than, I guess, like full blown AI self-driving cars everywhere. So we'll see how that rolls out. But it's, you know, it's really cool technology. And if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole to see how they actually develop that, there's lots of resources, YouTube videos and stuff like that. But the whole computer vision stuff is something that I really enjoy, and I think is you know, a really interesting technical topic for anybody that wants to look at it. But yeah, look, you know, over the next couple months and over the next couple years, as especially as a lot of these investors, investor funds, venture capital funds are looking for more streamlined, straightforward economics and actual profits. Look for I would say maybe a pushback on this AI, and as really kind of like a, you know, huge investable thing rather than a feature that gets you kind of like the end product better. But look for more pushback on how much value that this actually provides when going through, I would say, you know, a lot of these investor discussions and stuff. Like, how does this change the economics of the people that are purchasing it?
If you would like to learn more about the New Next podcast, find us at thenewnextpodcast.com, where you can suggest a topic you would like for us to cover. If you enjoyed what you heard, share the podcast, tell a friend about it, or rate us with 5 stars.